Hello, Starshine. My name is Liz, and this is my channel, Simsational Stories. If you have not seen my videos before, and you enjoy this one, please like and subscribe, and maybe check out my other social media as well. I'm on both Facebook and Twitter. All relevant links are in the description below, and of course, if you're a Sims player and you'd like to download any of my characters, just search the hashtag Simsational Stories on the Sims 4 gallery. All original content is created by This Is Not Eric. Finally, before I begin my Simsational story, I'd like to issue this blanket content and trigger warning. The following story is just Sims, hey. I'm not going to apologise for treating them terribly, if that's what I've done. But I do want to assure you now that although I mean absolutely no harm, I completely understand if you feel unable to consume my content. Many loves, and we will catch each other on the internet elsewhere. Okay, so now we've gotten that over with. Let's go. Today's story is from Over to Oberon, and we're at chapter 4. If you have not seen previous chapters and would like to catch up, there are playlists available on my channel so you can hear the entire story in chronological order. The rest of us are going to move on from where we left off last time though. So without further ado. Oberon Down had been at university for 3 semesters, and he was well and truly in the swing of things now. He'd written 3 term papers, given a handful of speeches, and spent the better part of his life studying in the library so as to achieve a perfect GPA. Everything was going according to plan. Then one day in the cafeteria, he caught sight of some telltale purple hair. Could it be? It was. It was his old Batuan girlfriend, Giselle Gibbs. How had he not known that she was coming to university too? It had been years since their holiday romance, and they hadn't spoken in all that time. They had breakfast together that day, though, and the chemistry that had been between them years before was definitely still there. Giselle could feel the sexual tension throbbing in the air, even as they spoke of everyday things like what their majors were and whether she'd be at that night's bonfire party. Giselle hadn't been planning on going to any party, but the moment Oberon mentioned that he hoped to see her there, she'd changed her mind. She had made a mistake all those years ago, breaking up with him, and she wanted to make up for it now. Luckily for her, Oberon kissed her that night. Giselle and Oberon spent the next year of their college careers happily back together. It was different now that they were older. Their relationship before had been so short-lived and based on chemistry alone. However, now they finally had the time to really get to know one another. It was like a dream come true. It was just after their 1-year anniversary that Giselle began throwing up. In fact, she had a suspicion that it was because of their anniversary. They'd had quite a bit to drink that night, and had forgotten the usual precautions they had always employed before. They hadn't thought about it at the time, of course, but there was no doubt about it. The consequences of that one drunken night were to stick with them for a long time. Giselle was pregnant, and, as she told Oberon, she was keeping the baby. She knew it was a lot, and not what they had planned, but she had to follow her heart, and if Oberon wasn't ready for it, then she completely understood. Oberon agreed. He definitely hadn't planned for this. It wasn't on the agenda for right now, but then any good scientist knew that nature rarely followed the plan. They would therefore obviously just have to adjust the plan. But how? He himself only had another year left in his degree before graduation, but Giselle was 2 years behind him. How are they going to work all this out? First things first, they had to tell his parents. Magnus and Kalia lived in Strangerville with his little sister Cosmos, and Oberon took Giselle back home with him to share the news. Cosmos had been in the kitchen, supposedly doing her homework, but Oberon heard her choke out a loud, shocked noise when they made their awkward pregnancy announcement. To Oberon and Giselle's surprise, Kalia and Magnus were not only very understanding, but also full of heaps of helpful advice and solutions to problems the couple hadn't even begun to think of yet, such as where would they live? The university was obviously not open to having babies on campus, and Giselle at the very least would have to move off campus. She would also either have to give up her degree or move to distance education. Luckily for Oberon, his parents had been withholding a wonderful surprise. While he had been busy at university, they had been renovating. The basement lab had been extended to include a small granny flat, which they encouraged the couple to move into immediately. Oberon had almost finished his degree, and Magnus offered him a start at his laboratory after graduation. It was very kind of them, and with her own parents having passed away already, leaving her in abject poverty and debt, Giselle couldn't help but accept their kind offer. It was a bit awkward living with her in-laws, and the granny flat was rather pokey, but what else could she do? They needed somewhere safe and stable to raise the baby. Magnus and Kalia didn't charge Giselle any official rent money. However, they did expect her to pull her weight in the household. This translated to a list of daily and weekly chores that basically consisted of her doing all the family's vacuuming, laundry, and cleaning. Kalia still cooked most of the meals though, but she always acted as if she was doing Giselle a huge favour while doing so. Meanwhile, Oberon's parents charged him absolutely no rent whatsoever. In fact, he still got a rather generous allowance, and they encouraged him to travel to the university to study for his finals as often as he felt he needed to. He wasn't given a list of any chores or responsibilities at home, because in their minds, his job right now was to graduate with honours. Giselle found it grossly unfair. She'd been forced to move to distance education and struggled to fit watching videos of lectures in between household chores. But Oberon and his education and future career were given all priority over her and her education and future career. She knew she wasn't their child and everything, but it still sucked. Oberon wasn't aware of any of Giselle's issues with their home life. As far as he was concerned, his parents had done them and their budding family 1,000 favours. Through a combination of his own degree and his father's connections, Oberon had been able to obtain a higher entry position with a higher salary, and because they weren't paying rent, they were able to prepare for the baby. That was all thanks to his parents. When Giselle finally broke down one night and confessed her issues with the whole situation, Oberon reacted badly. She was being so ungrateful. His family had taken her in while she was penniless and pregnant, provided her with a beautiful, safe home to live in, and fed her healthy, fresh, homegrown, home-cooked meals, all out of the goodness of their hearts. And this is how she repaid them? And that brings us to the end of Chapter 4 of Over to Oberon. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can tune in soon to hear the next chapter. And hey, maybe think about sharing my channel with a friend. Or don't. It's your life. Anyway, bye!